Welcome back to Double Take the Podcast. Today we have Michael Booth on the show with us. Anytime Michael's around, it's a fun time. We catch up on a lot of the history of the Booth brothers and Michael's family and dad, and just talk about a lot of different subjects. We hope you'll enjoy. All right, Chris, let's roll.
Well, it's good to have you, Michael, with us today, and we got three tenor singers here.
Yeah, you have to be a tenor singer to sing lead for Gold City.
Well, boys, I don't identify as a tenor anymore. So.
But that you were.
Well, it was a brief aired part of my life,
and I was there for the whole thing. I got a front row seat.
It was so honestly, I think I should go back because it was a lot easier. Honestly, I mean it because
if you want to jump into the weeds of technical stuff in the beginning of this thing, but there's a gear tenors get into, and if we get too low, we get out of that gear,
right?
And that's where you now have to sing.
Live. That's where you have to live. But with Gold City, you have to live with a lot of power, a lot of fullness, and which is what I always did,
right?
And then doing the Legacy 5 thing, it was fun.
Yeah,
we had a lot of fun.
Y'all worked together a lot. Didn't
we
you,
worked
the
a
Jubilee
lot together.
Crew.
The first weekend I was out with them was the Jubilee Christmas videotaping down there at the brand new In Touch Studios.
Oh yeah, where Matt got on fire. The paper.
Howard set the stage on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Brand new, multi-million-dollar facility.
Oh no!
Dr. Stanley's sitting right over there watching all of it. And what was hilarious is I don't know if you knew this or not. Afterward, he said my favorite part was when y'all set that stage on fire.
He thought it was part of the act.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Well, it was funny. I got it out or started getting it cut, and I thought, well, what? You know how time stands still on stage?
It was totally.
So it happened this fast, but in
we
my
were
mind,
sitting back behind watching.
Yeah, I was watching it. I'm like, all right, that's on fire. How can I put this out and make it look like it's? So I went over there and started dancing like
the holy dance,
the holy on top of it. And when it was over, awesome. I went to Dr. Stanley. I said, "You need to understand something." I was just trying to get the fire out, man.
Just comedy, and it just hit me in my feet all of a sudden.
I didn't pray about it. I just did it. Anyway, this is great. How many of these have y'all done?
This is the third one we've actually recorded. Jeff, we just started this. We had the idea. A while back, but we really got to talking about it a couple of weeks ago.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
So well, I'm honored to be your fourth sucker.
Yeah. Well, actually, you're actually the only second sucker. Jeff Easter was with us on which was a barrel of laughs.
I mean, yeah, I can't match that. I didn't hear it, but I.
Well, no, we thought since Jeff was here, we'd go with Mr. Serious.
Yeah.
There you go. Now, what a lot of people don't know about Michael is how much of an encourager you are.
He really is.
I enjoy encouraging.
Yeah, you were to me. You were amazing because I'd always sing lead. That was never. I had the mindset of a lead singer. That was always the thing, and I'd not been on the road for 8 years and studying with Brett.
Yeah,
and he had increased my range. He had opened up all the head voice and it honestly was easier to sing that. But then when you walk on stage, the muscles kick in.
We've talked about that at length.
It's why it's so hard for anybody that's working on their voice now. When you're touring and working on your voice, and when we do it, that muscle memory kicks in. It'll hit you from song to song. If it's a song you haven't sang in years. Yeah. So that was happening. But you were very kind to me, and I could hit an ending.
Yeah. So you remember that?
First night.
I don't know how I said it, but I'm sure what I said was, do whatever you got to do to survive the song, but hit that ending.
Yeah. I told Michael, because we were doing this videotaping, it was the third night I'd been with them. We did 2 days.
It was
and then
soon.
Did that.
It was real quick.
And I didn't know those songs.
Yeah, it's true. You really didn't.
And I told Michael, I said, I don't know these songs. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll do all the words in there if you'll just hit the ending.
Yeah.
I said, I can hit the ending. That'd be fine. So I was plowing endings that night.
That's funny.
But yeah, when I first joined the Kingsmen, you encouraged me a whole lot because we hadn't worked together all that much. But at Quartet Convention, you'd always come by and just give me a word of encouragement, tell me, I'm doing a good job. And that was encouraging to me because nobody knew who I was, and probably still don't. But
nobody realizes how famous you are.
But and it was a little intimidating because the Kingsmen recorded "Look for Me at Jesus' Feet" years ago when Squire first wrote it.
Yeah,
the original cut.
Squire, yeah.
And so we had
little Ernie.
Yes.
Ernie did it first.
Well,
right? Or did Johnny do
Johnny
it?
Perrick
did he do it
on Big and Live first?
Yeah.
Okay.
But every tenor after that had pretty much done that song. We kept it in the program, but it was intimidating because y'all had just had a number one with it again.
So it became
your song.
It was, I don't want to derail you from your conversation, but Nick Bruno. Let's see. When did I record that? Early 2000s. For 5 years, he kept telling me, "Son, there's a song the Kingsmen used to do. You need to do it." And no offense, but I remember thinking, because Ronnie and I, we were trying to go after Eagles, Gatlin Brothers, Restless Heart, groovy country kind of, and we did. Yeah, and he's like, "Hey, do this country gospel." I'm like, I'm not hearing it, Nick. So I brushed him off for 5 years. We recorded a table album called Pure Southern Gospel. To be honest, we didn't have the money for a full production album, so we thought, what can we do that sounds like we meant to do this? And I'm like, we'll pick great songs that work with a rhythm track. And Nick said, "You need to do that." I said, "Fine, I'll do it."
Right.
And forgive me, I'm just being honest. I didn't put any thought into it. The version you hear recorded, my second or third pass, I was reading it out of Squire's book. I didn't even know it. But it's a testimony to his writing, because when an artist doesn't know a song and that song pulls you into those nuances and inflections like it did. I haven't heard the cut. It was played at my uncle's funeral last year. I hadn't heard it in years.
The original cut?
The original cut.
Oh, wow.
And I'm listening to it going, wow, I see what Squire did. It was so, even without really knowing the song, his lyric and melody would pull emotion, if that makes sense. That's a great sign of a great song and great writer.
But that he wrote that for his wife.
Yes.
Did you know that?
I
did.
You know
the story behind that?
Great story.
And if I remember correctly,
tell us. I don't know the story.
Kind of put it. Well, he wrote it was basically a love song to his wife, like "If I leave here before you do, look for me at Jesus' feet." He wrote it for Linda, his wife,
neat.
and but he had kind of put that in his bottom desk drawer and kind of tucked it away.
I didn't know that part.
And Nick Bruno was going through songs.
He was in there rambling
found
through
it twice. Going through it.
Nick was bad to go in there and ramble through his desk and stuff.
That's all. I gotta call Nick about that. I'm like,
don't invite Nick over.
And Nick said, "You really ought to finish this song," because I don't think he had finished it at that point. And he said, "Oh, that's just something I wrote for Linda," And Nick's like, "No, you need to finish this song. I think you have something here," and the rest is history.
Yeah, I didn't get it when I first recorded it too, and I figured out. Because, we didn't program it for 6 months after the album came out. And finally my dad's like, "Son, you need to." So just to hush him up, I'm like, "Fine, I'll sing it."
Was it your dad was singing with you?
No, he was just on the road with us. And he's like, "You need to sing that song." I'm like, I did the same thing I did to Nick. Me and my brilliance. I just did. Our two biggest songs, I didn't reckon. "Blind Man" and "Look for Me at Jesus' Feet," I voted against. But that's another story. Anyway, I went ahead and sang the song at a homecoming, Plant City, Florida, First Baptist, Plant City, Florida, whatever year it was. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, there's something to this. Here's the bottom line. I hadn't lost enough people in my life.
That's it.
And I think I do is start getting choked up. I carried my uncle's coffin, Charles Booth, who he was one of my greatest, he and my dad were my two greatest heroes. And it changed everything. Yeah, because the only thing that matters at that point is, do I see them again? Where are they? Are they okay? Do I see them again? And all of a sudden, that song, now I get it.
That was the thing for me that Gary, we've talked about Gary Jones, but Gary would try to pull out of me in the studio, and he did. He would get it out of me in the studio. But it was hilarious after I was ever around him again after my dad died. He would say, "Boy, you've got that heartfelt stuff now." It
changes, doesn't it?
Until you've lived long enough to see people that you love dearly go to heaven. It sometimes it takes that, to.
I think artists have to bleed to be able to connect.
Yeah. And there's some suffering with that.
Yeah.
That just happens. So, hey, speaking of your
speaking of suffering,
Booth Brothers are with us tonight.
That was awesome.
The project that you just put out with your dad and your uncle.
Oh my gosh!
Talk about that for a few minutes, because that was you let me hear some of that. We talked about that when you were doing it. You said, "Man, this is cool. What I'm doing. This is
pretty neat. I'll get you a copy tonight. You can get
I need that.
1 for $15, 2 for.
Oh
yeah.
Well, I'll swap you one of Danny's solo CDs.
We'll pool our money together.
So, Ronnie and I years ago bought most of the master 2-inch tape and analog tape from our dad's career. Back 20 years ago.
With just different record companies?
Yeah, Skylight Records.
Okay.
It was all Skylight.
What was that based out of?
Nashville.
Really?
They were a pretty good sized label back in the day.
What group was it? The Booth Brothers, or what?
It was the Rebels Quartet.
The Rebels. Okay.
Strange name for a gospel group. They were originally started like way back in the day, sponsored by Dixie Lily Rebel Flour Company, and they kept dropping parts of the name.
So there were some rebels, some famous.
Rebels Quartet.
Yeah, but yes. The other singers was.
Oh yeah, London Paris, Jim
and
Hamill.
The Rebels. That's what I thought. So when Big Jim left,
Nick Bruno,
the Kings
Nick
for a while,
Bruno,
he went there.
John Gresham.
I've got that record with.
The Revealing Sounds.
Revealing Sounds. It's got your dad and your uncle on it. Yeah.
They were hitting their stride right there, man.
Gresham was the bass singer. That was with Thrasher Brothers.
He ended up with the Thrashers. Yeah.
So and then your dad was with the Thrasher Brothers a while.
For a short time.
Too. Because Ronnie's talked about living down there in Hueytown.
Sure enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of history there.
It is, man.
So we found out those masters were available. The only thing that had happened at that point was Nat King Cole's daughter had done a song, Unforgettable, with her dad. And we thought, man, maybe one day, or at least maybe we could remix them. But there were only 2 or 3 albums on multi-track. Everything else went down band and vocals. Boom.
All at one time.
Yeah, all at one time. Good, bad, or indifferent. That's what it is. So there were 2 or 3 albums. One album, Dad had a cold, and Uncle Charles had a cold. So I'm like, I can't use that. It sounded like it. But there were 2 other ones that were done on 8-track, 4 for the band, 4 for the singers.
Wow.
6 hours, band and vocals, boom.
Done.
That's it. I don't even think they took time to mix it. The mix is horrible, So
I bet they were singing pretty close to on pitch, though.
Pretty great.
You kind of had to.
Well, you had to back
then. You had no choice. And it's funny what you can do when you don't know you're not allowed to do otherwise.
Right.
Yeah, for real.
So we finally, I don't remember the genesis. I think Buddy Mullins had done something with his dad. There was a tape or something that he was able to sing with his dad. And I thought, I wonder if AI or something, whatever. So I went and got the tapes, found out you had to have them baked.
We did the same thing.
Did the same with the Gold Stick? Okay.
Yeah.
Had them baked, which means you get 1 or 2 shots to get them from analog to digital.
Yeah.
So the guy at Hilltop, John something or other, did that. What was so cool, my favorite part about all this, was Dad had never heard himself in a fully produced thing. I mean, he was slinging and flinging. They sang great, but it was 6 hours, good, bad, or indifferent. So every step of the way he got to hear it. So the first thing we had to do, jump in the weeds of technicality here, we all record to a click track. It's a machine that is absolute perfect time.
It's a metronome, yeah.
Yeah, it's a metronome. They did not. But their timing was pretty good. Floyd Kramer was on the piano.
Oh my goodness!
So
really?
it was a high-end band.
Wow.
But not perfect. So Daryl Toney, my cousin down in Atlanta, had to take their vocals and cut them anytime they were too fast, too slow, to place them in. Now, what separates the men from the boys is how do you do that and make it sound like it's natural?
Right.
That took some skill, and he crushed it.
So Danny had to do that. So we, on this album we're working on, that's not been talked about yet.
Yeah, which I was wondering if we can talk about.
There's a song on there from the Pillars of Faith album that we redid, and Gary did a new track. It was his idea. He wanted to take a new track, but put the original Larry Goss orchestration on. Oh. Yeah. So
that's tricky with the.
So there wasn't a. There was a click. There was probably a click to begin with, but there wasn't. So they had to guess on. They figured out where. And
did they tempo map it? Maybe went with it.
And then, well, they did the track, but it was a little off. So Danny had to take and cut all the orchestration and all the banjo and the orchestration, all that. I'll send it to you.
That's pretty great.
It's a special thing.
That's 2-3 dozen tracks.
Yeah.
of cutting and pasting.
So that same process.
A lot of work.
But then you went where?
So we got them clicking and edited the vocals, which means anytime there's a shaded note, we fix it.
Yeah.
Everybody does that nowadays. Nobody's perfect.
Some more than
Dad
others.
had some more than others. Dad had never heard himself perfected.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word.
That had to be awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So the first thing he heard was we took Floyd's channel and we edited Dad and Uncle Charles, and he got to hear that just as raw as can be. I'd go over to his house. He'd get in my pickup truck, and Mom and Dad and I would sit in there for an hour and let him hear whatever. Then the next thing we heard the rhythm tracks, which I played drums. That was a bucket list. I thought if I'm writing the check, I'm playing drums.
Yeah.
Brent Mason.
Well, you're a great drummer too.
Well, I knew those songs, so I wasn't worried about being creative under pressure.
Well, you just went for the A players, didn't you?
But well, Dad asked me. He said, "Son, do you think you can get Brent Mason?" I said, "No." But I called Gordon Mote, who played piano. I said, "Dad wants Brent." Gordon called Brent, and told him what it was, and Brent said, "Yeah, man,
good guy." Yeah.
Yeah. Jacob Lowry on bass.
Man.
And then he heard the rhythm tracks, played that for him, and then I hired Steve Malden, because Steve can do anything current now, but my favorite work that he did was 70s kind of stuff, 70s, 80s. He just knows how that worked, and so I called him. I'm like, hey, put the orc on this. So then he did that. Dad got to hear that, and then the final mix. And Ronnie and I, so here's what we did to finalize the point. Originally, it's a quartet, Dad and Uncle Charles. Ronnie replaced all the baritone and sang all the baritone leads. Any bass singer lead, I sang an octave higher.
Oh, neat.
Fits perfect. So everybody got solos on it. And then we sang harmony. And my favorite part, you guys will get this as studio junkies. Every now and then there was an edit that wouldn't be natural if it was done. So I would punch in for my dad, for my uncle, for Ronnie, and finding the voices in any given register to match them. That was some work, man. But that was so much fun.
It's fun, yeah.
It's
Chris don't know this, but I did it on one.
Did you do it?
Yeah, it was. He was not in town, and there was.
So you just
I don't know if I've told you that there was
something we had to get the album.
We had to get it done.
Yeah.
It was the Right Now album. There was something. And Danny said, "Go, okay, you got to do this."
Yeah.
And so but we do that.
Everybody
those things
does
happen.
Dwayne Allen.
You get down to crunch time, and you have to do things.
Dwayne Allen said, I can't remember what song it was. There was 2 words on something. And they were on the road, and they're like, hey, Dwayne, you got to fix these. He said, I don't have it. He said, you do it. And so as soon as he told me, I wish I remember the song. I can always hear it now.
Yeah.
But never heard it in my whole life.
Right.
So it's done all the time. Anyway, I had a ball matching tones, and I stacked Dad.
That's cool.
I did a lot of stacking with Dad. He was 30 years old, and Uncle Charles was 32.
You know, it's like I talked about losing my dad. He was a singer. He was had a
I don't think I ever heard it.
You didn't. I mean, he was. Nobody did really, except regionally.
Big voice. I imagine he would.
It was a big voice, and so just being able to do something like that would I can't imagine the thrill.
It was worth every penny and every second.
So what we're doing with this podcast are these stories. It's the behind the scenes thing nobody hears. And before we move on, so the first time I ever met you, Gary had hired me to sing with Mercy's Mark, and we were just. Well, this was a couple of years into that, and we were going to Louisville for Quartet Convention, and on the way, I was driving the bus, and I had always anyway. There's a story. I'll tell the story someday. Okay. You don't remember this, but he set me up and had me pulled over. I was driving, and full blown arrested.
Oh yeah,
no. You don't remember?
No.
So it had got out convention, and you and Ronnie came up and were ragging me about it.
Oh,
Gary was oh yeah, you especially. Yeah, so that's the first time I ever met you. But that was, things like that.
So he's not always an encourager.
No,
he was. Yeah,
I'm a needler too.
But that was, buddy. That was fun. That was an epic punked event. It was awesome. I'll tell the story.
Yeah,
sometime.
I need to hear
that. What we're trying to do is just get. Not really. People want to know about the singing. They know a lot about the singing, but the other stuff, how we got started. So, my first question is kind of serious, but I want to know because I did.
Why am I scared?
Well, I don't know the true story. What did you actually do that made Ronnie not like you anymore?
I knew the way you were framing that. Like Buddy Mullins said, man, I thought the other brother was quitting.
So Ronnie, is an iconic voice.
Yeah.
I mean, Ronnie Ronnie's probably the smoothest, and I mean this in all sincerity. Yeah. He is probably the smoothest, most velvet-toned lead singer I've ever heard.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone like Danny Gaither, maybe close back.
Yeah, in the day. That would be a similar thing.
A little different range.
There was, like with Legacy 5, there were nights I would come off and he said, boy, you know, talk with that way he talks.
Hey, bud.
Hey, bud, boy, that was a beautiful tone. Just a beautiful tone today. Yeah. It's the same tone I do all. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, that
was his thing. Yeah, but that was his thing. He was so into that tone of what he did, and it's just he was a master at that. I loved to hear him sing.
Yeah.
That type of thing, and then the blend that you guys created with Jim, because Jim's very much into some of that, so it created that Booth Brothers sound.
It was a thing.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to me how God puts things together for however long it lasts, and what's created out of that, and it can never be duplicated.
No.
Whatever that is, you guys sound like Gold City, but you sound like your sound of Gold City.
There's a lot of similarities.
There's very similarity.
I think it's because we were such huge fans.
Yeah.
So there's just things that happened.
Yeah.
But Chris was a huge fan of Brian and Jay, and that man, when I was a kid, Ivan was, speaking of tones, Ivan was ridiculous back in the 80s.
Yeah, you can
90s.
Hear the influence, but you still sound like you.
Yeah, same thing with Jeff. You hear that Tim Riley influence and some of those tones. And
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Which I think is critical to Gold City. If boy, I didn't know if we want to go in this direction.
Let's go. Come on.
If a group is trying to continue a heritage or sing classics, you got to be careful. You either nail it or leave it alone.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
and if you're like us, you're just too dumb to do anything different.
Or you do what you guys are doing. No, you guys are nailing it. You're absolutely nailing it. And the thing about Gold City, it takes 4 extreme voices. It's the one thing unique really to Gold City. It takes a high tenor singer that can sound like a lead and have lows too. It takes a tenor singer that can stay in the rafters all night long.
Sing soprano notes at times.
Yeah, literally soprano. Yeah. It takes a baritone singer that is typically the range of a traditional lead singer. Right. And then the bass singer it's asking a lot.
Well, because where everything's keyed, they're asked to hit other notes that you wouldn't ask to hit.
Yeah, basically you guys sing a third higher than we do.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Everything. If you bump the Booth Brothers catalog up a third or a fourth, that's where Gold City would end up.
Well, I don't know if they even know about our private conversation out in Missouri, I guess it was.
Which one? We've had so many.
Well, when I was contemplating going with them, you know.
Oh yeah, I remember sitting next to the rafters.
Out on traveling, and you know that I was just kind of done. But when I went out with them, that was the thing about it. That first night in Mobile, that we sang we'd never sang a note together. Ever. I'd sang with Danny and Tim one time at Norm Baston's funeral. We sang Midnight Cry, and that's the only time I'd never. I don't know that I had ever. Yeah, I'd met you. I met you with. Yeah, we had met. And then he came to hear us with Mercy's Mark. That's how
I've sung with you on tape, but not in person.
I didn't know that either.
I used to sing along to.
Mercy's
Mark tape.
Yeah,
CDs.
You can tell that fast too.
Well, and it's that thing of you can't hide the love you have for those. You can't. You don't ever get over when you're 15, 16, 17, 18 year old.
Gosh.
When you're coming up through that into your early 20s, and that's your
most influential.
It's the most, and then all of a sudden you're on stage with that name, with guys that sound like the other guys. It gets you.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even. I come on the bus. When we got done that night, I walked on the bus. Danny was sitting at the back, and I walked back there and started changing clothes. He said, "Buddy, I don't know what I got to do, but if there's any way that you'll consider this," and even at that moment, I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna have to consider it."
Wow,
it was that.
It was.
But then you and I talked, and you shared what you felt like the importance of having this group out there again. You know.
Yeah, our genre was in desperate need of Gold City and I want to be really careful with these words because it's so subjective of how people accept my following words. Gold City at the top. There's got to be some groups that everyone looks at, a handful of groups that everyone looks at, aims at, a leader, if you will. And don't get me wrong, Gold City has always sounded really good. There were,
there were a lot of, I know where you're going.
Yeah.
There were a lot of great singers that had filled these roles before, but they weren't huge Gold City fans.
It wasn't always the chemistry of what Brian, Ivan, Mike, and Tim were as it is now.
Yeah.
Also, in my humble opinion, if you took all the formations and you look at this, there's a chemistry thing that can't be explained or taught, or it just happens. And when it happens, everybody can tell.
Well, it was funny that night out there in Missouri when we actually sang. So, we don't go in and hear. We might hear a song or two, and then we got to warm up, or what do we have to do?
Oh, we were all standing in the wings watching
every
you guys,
Booth Brothers standing over there and going crazy.
Yeah.
Over there and y'all were,
well, we were in a bass pocket, too, and what a bass pocket is,
it's
when the bass volume is like 10 times louder than it's supposed to be, and it was like,
Jeff just killing it.
Yes, this is so great. And everybody was owning every note. And that's the key to Gold City, because you're asking so much of the vocalists. And sometimes if you're close, you can tell, it's a little much for this guy. But y'all were stomping on it. And it was like, that's Gold City. Right
it was pretty evident that this was the right thing for all of us.
Yeah.
But the main thing in all that, talking about all that, was the encouragement, man, from you has been huge, and it's been a huge blessing to me.
I didn't want to beg you at that time, but I had some big conversations with my guys and Landon Bean of IMC Promotions and some other, and I know Jim's on the board of Quartet Convention, and one of our challenges in our genre is, do we have enough artists that can really haul the mail on these festivals where they're multiple day? How many headliners can? That's what I mean by haul. The group that goes on last after the crowd is tired and worn out and beat up, can they handle that spot? That's asking a lot. And when I saw that, I'm like, there it is. We really need you guys.
Yeah, it's been neat to
and
get to
it's been fun. And I almost sent you a text the other day. I should have, because I saw on the ad of the Quartet Convention, you guys were in the middle of the ad. I'm like, that's not an accident.
Well,
that's not them boys don't mess around with their graphics for no reason.
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool.
We greatly appreciate all that.
You can charge them another $100 a
night. You can charge them, you won't get it. So tell us I don't know if a lot of people know, but you're doing the solo thing.
Yeah.
Now you've been working with that, and that's a great thing.
Yeah.
I think you need to be doing that.
A lot of people are confused why. They're confused why, because I'm a Booth brother. When Ronnie left,
quit.
Because Ronnie quit.
He's always been a quitter. Even when he wasn't quitting, he wanted to quit.
Yeah. You guys need to do one with him.
Hey, for sure.
So let me do the rundown as fast and smooth as I can. Ronnie left, and speaking of his vocal, I thought, there's not another one. I'm not even going to try. I'm going to go in a different direction. Otherwise, it's going to sound like I tried and I didn't get there. And I still stand by that. So I called Buddy, and Buddy's like, we talked. He's like, I can do it, but I can't do the amount of dates you guys were doing. Well,
Buddy has the ministry.
Yeah, he's a ministry, Hope for the World, which is orphans in Albania.
Yeah.
And he's got to run funds for that. He's got to run it. All that's a lot of work. I said, well, how many can you do? He's like, about 75. I'm like, okay. So I did pen to paper. We were cruising pretty good on the money coming in for the Booth Brothers, and I thought, well, I'll take a pay cut, but I think I can run 75, still have the bus. Well, post-COVID, we lost about 20-25% of our great promoters. And you can't run a tight budget and lose 25%, 20%. It's a death knell. So I'm like, oh, boy, that's a problem. So now I've got the bus and I've got Buddy, and I'm like, what am I going to do? So then within 6 months, Paul went home because his wife had passed away.
Right. Yeah.
Booth Brothers are not used to changes.
No, there's not been any changes.
No. I mean, Jim was there 13 years, and then Paul was there 7.
Right.
And Ronnie and I were 32 years together. So all this is happening within 6 months. So I called Jim, and I'm like, Jim, tell me what you can do, and whatever that is, we'll do it. He's like, I think they can do about 60. Okay. So we're going to do 60. The problem with 60 is now, economically, it put us in a no man's land for our budget to deal with transportation. I could no longer afford running a bus unless I didn't want to get paid.
Right.
And I'm all about Vicky's husband getting paid.
Vicky appreciates you.
Yeah, exactly. So it put us in a no man's land of where we can't. We have to do, if we want the bus, we got to do more days. Well, we can't do more days. So we'll do less days. Well, now we can't have the bus. So we got rid of the bus, and that was 2 or 3 years of trying to figure out how to get everywhere without the bus. And
you don't know how big how people think that those nice expensive buses is just a luxury that we
it's a necessity.
You have to have it.
Yeah,
you can't, with what we do, you can't rest.
Yeah,
it's impossible. And as a singer, you have to rest. You have to have your sleep.
Yeah, first thing to go is the voice.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey y'all, this is Josh with Gold City, and we want to tell you about our latest radio single written by our good friend, former Gold City alumni and producer Gary Jones. Gary wrote this song about 6 or 7 months ago, and he brought it to us for our he honestly wrote it for our latest album because we needed a few more songs, and it turned out to be one of the just absolute most favorite songs on the album, and it has a lot of special meaning now since Gary's went home to be with the Lord. It's called Rise Up. We want you to call your local radio stations and request this. We know you're going to love it.
So all that to say, it just doesn't work as a business model anymore. So in 2026, the Booth Brothers will only do about 10 or 11 dates.
Wow.
A cruise and our fan retreat.
Man.
That's it. And then I'm going to go out, and I've been building this over the last few years. And you know what, guys? It's interesting to me how God changes circumstances and changes your heart along the way. Because there's no way. 10 years ago, I'd have thought about it, and I was thinking about it, but I didn't want to go out there by myself. I really enjoy. I don't know how else to say it. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I get in my little pickup truck, or I fly, and I go.
But see, the difference in being with a group and doing, it's all you.
Yeah.
I mean, how different is that? I mean, you can speak to that. I've done 1 or 2 here and there, but as far as a solo career or
I'm very fortunate that for all this time with the Booth Brothers, I've been done most of the MC work. So the transitions and songs and whatever. What took me a while, because I started doing some solo dates a few years ago. Yeah. It took me a while to figure out. I know what I am with the Booth Brothers. I don't know what I am by myself. What is my voice dependable on? Because you tenors will understand this. If we get in bad shape, we can use different tones as long as we're not on the melody, carrying the load of the melody.
That's actually the art of singing tenor, too, to a point. Because there's no need to. That was the thing that I had to understand.
Yeah.
That
we talked about that
Ernie,
a lot.
You did, and Ernie Haas was a very.
You don't have to do those.
You got to do all that. You got to do all that. You're singing too loud. You singing too hard.
Yeah.
So I can do it. Well, but you're singing too hard.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and as a tenor singer, when you are plowing all the time, when you actually need to make a statement with your voice, you've already given it to them. So it's so anyway. But it's different now. But the solo thing.
So I can't use that cruising tone as a soloist. So now I had to find what is my dependable voice range, and I just put it.
What was it, about 3 notes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now listen, folks. This is a typical conversation between Michael and I. It never stops.
It's nothing. I encourage him. He jabs me
because we think it's hilarious, and you think it's hilarious. You can't stop laughing.
Hey, one of my acceptance speeches, I won Tenor of the Year 9 times. Thank you very much.
I know, it's amazing.
And one of my speeches, I got
for
up
a lead
there.
singer to win Tenor.
Yeah, I know. Well, I said. One time I got up there, I said, a requirement for winning Team of the Year, you should at least be high enough to sing lead for Brian Free and Assurance.
That's good.
Isn't that good?
Boy, wow. Speaking of that spot, Bill, incredible. He's a tenor. I mean, he is a tenor. He's an incredible singer.
One of the greatest we've ever
I love
had.
to hear Bill.
So I've over time I've found where I want to be vocally, and I found the music. I started noticing what kind of places I'm being booked in, and why not? They're just the local church.
Yeah,
probably 300 to 500 seat places that are not always full.
But
they're not always full.
That size and that crowd's the funnest.
It is
to me.
It is the sweetest, no pressure kind of thing. And economically, all you gospel singers out there, I will tell you this: you don't have to have a big crowd to make a living.
No.
And so that when you roll up in a bus with 5, 6, 7 guys, you got to have a crowd.
Yeah.
They have to be there to pay the bills. That's not all. It's off my shoulders now.
Yeah, pressure's off on that.
Pressure's off on that. Vocally, I'm only singing as high as I want. I can dodge notes because I'm not lined up to the vocal arrangement.
3 other notes you can hear.
Yeah, I get all my 3 notes.
Note if you want to.
Or I can do the Bon Jovi.
There you go. Yep. There you go. Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's one of the things I'm really enjoying about all this. That and I don't want to wear you guys out. But I like having space to say what I want to say.
Well, you're very much ministry. You have always been that guy that people come up and talk to you and they pour their heart out, and so you're getting to do that, and the Lord doesn't lead in that direction for somebody that's not prepared for that. So I think that's the season.
It's the gifting. My goal, someone asked the other day, what are you trying to accomplish? I want Monday for there to be some application of what they heard.
Very cool.
What can you say? They know your songs. They're going to play your song. Is there some little nugget that helps them deal with that thing that's coming like a freight train on Monday? And I'll tell you, you know what it is? Package it any way you want. Jesus is the only way, and hope. You give them the gospel truth and give them hope. That'll stick to Monday. My philosophy is once you're a part of their life on Monday, they'll never leave you.
Right.
Because we all want encouragement.
Yeah.
People that encourage each other stick together.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm shooting for.
Well, what's the outlook? Where are you headed? Just that you're doing 10, 15 Booth Brother dates, retreat, cruise.
And then
the Booth Brothers will do the cruise.
Yes. We'll do the cruise and the retreat and Shipshewana, and then
because Jim and Melissa still do their.
Jim and Melissa do their thing. Buddy and Carrie do Hope for the World. I'll go out 50, 60, 70 days. I don't know. I just told the booking guy, I'm like, I'm enjoying this to where money isn't a driving factor.
Yeah.
I got a call the other day.
Well, everybody knows you're independently wealthy too. So.
Somebody gave me the Rolex. I didn't buy this. Compared to third world countries, I'm pretty wealthy.
Well, we're all in pretty good shape, brother. We're living indoors with running water. So.
But there was a church. I was going to be off. There was a church 2.5 hours away. Somebody canceled on them a week out. And the guy who does my scheduling, he's like, hey, long shot, would you go Sunday morning? And I'm like, yeah, I get up at 5 o'clock, I drive 2 hours, I sing, come back home. Yeah. And can I tell you, it wasn't nobody there.
Yeah.
It wasn't nobody there. But I had the best time.
Wow.
I had a great time. I didn't have weight on my shoulders. I loved them. I got invited back.
Of course.
And you know what? I'll probably go back and sing to another small crowd again.
Yeah, but there'll be more because all those people will tell, and that's how it goes. When you're building anything, and right now, even though you are Michael Booth of the Booth Brothers, you're building again.
Let me tell you
You're
something.
building more than you probably have ever built at this point.
You want some vulnerability? You want some real raw vulnerability here? I thought, well, I'll just tell my booking agent at the time, just go ahead. I'll do 50 dates. Go ahead and allow the world to have me. Well, nobody wanted me. Nobody wanted me.
Well, they wanted you. They just didn't want to pay you.
No, right. Well, because the call they get, like, what is he doing? What? He's a Booth brother. What does he do? I mean, how does he do it on his own? I'm like, are you kidding me? So
let me tell you what I do.
Let me tell you. You don't understand how great I am. And humble. So, yeah, that was a real eye-opener. I'm like, on our genre, they're not really into soloists all that much.
Right.
So I get it. So I found out that people that were booking Booth Brothers are not really interested in me. Not yet, anyway. So I went to, I finally found a guy that was just called these churches. I'm like, hey, they're taking me in. And there's some pride to be swallowed.
Yeah,
you know?
Of course.
I called one major promoter. I just assumed he'd book me. And I'm like, hey, put my on in the winter. I'll come down. I'll do it on my dime. I said, I just need a high-profile promoter to use me on 4 or 5 dates. I just assumed he would let me do it, right? He didn't book for free. He didn't. he didn't.
Okay, let me take back that they wanted you, but they just didn't want to pay you. They just didn't want you.
He didn't want me for free. And I'm like, wow, okay. So that's when I realized, all right, I got to start over.
Yeah.
I got to go out and prove myself again. And
But
you know what? That's fair. That's fair for people to go,
I don't think there was anybody more famous as a singer than Ivan when he left the Gold City at that time. I mean, my gracious alive, coming off of all
big crowds, man.
Huge crowds, and it was at the height of the industry. At that point now, that was the beginning of that Gaither era, the homecoming thing, and all that was hitting, but he had to do that.
Yeah.
I
remember that little Dodge van he was driving around in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just part of it,
It's part of it.
And, it's crazy because even when we came to I'm sure you've experienced this, Josh, but when I know Jeff has, Jeff, he was stuck 20 years at Dollywood, and he enjoyed it. But he had that one fan base there, and he found out when he came out here that a lot of these people had never heard
of the great
him.
Jeff Chapman.
Yeah. And when I came here, people was like, "No, I know you from somewhere. Yeah. I've seen you sing somewhere."
Yeah, I get it all the time.
And you probably had the same thing, but it's just you're going to bring a different fan base to the Booth name that wasn't,
You're right,
and
because
vice versa.
The people I'm getting in front of, some of them have no idea who the Booth is. You're gonna love this. So I did one of the first times I did a solo gig was with my vocal coach, little Lindsey Graham, down there in Florida. Well, she goes to First Baptist Naples, and she had an annual event. She had Triumphant, and so she was going to have me. And so this has been a number of years ago. So I did my thing, and when it's over, I stepped off the stage like I normally do. And to be honest, with the Booth Brothers, I step off, and it's a 45 minutes to an hour of going, I'll sign that for you, let me pray for you all. It's a long...
It was crazy to watch.
It was some big lines. I stepped off the stage, and I'm going... There were 1,000 people there that night. Not one person walked up to me. I'm standing there, and I saw Lindsay's mom. I said, "You mind if I just go change my clothes?"
That's hilarious.
Isn't that great?
That is. That's awesome.
What are you gonna do?
We got to wrap it up. We could sit here and talk for hours.
Thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Thank you for doing it. This has been a blast, and we'll do it again.
Hey, y'all call me for your solo.
Hey, give your
nobody knows how in demand I am.
Give the information, like your website, all that kind of stuff, so that they can reach you.
Okay, Michael Booth Online, and if you lose that, go to boothbrothers.com. Put attention, Michael, and they'll find me.
Okay.
And I'm enjoying this season. There's no pressure. If it grows, it grows. If it doesn't, I'm good.
It's going to grow, man. It's going to grow. It's going to be great.
Love you, boys. Looking forward to
man.
hearing tonight. Please.
All right.
Can we go on first? I don't want to.
No, we don't do that. You're the headliner, buddy.